Whether you are a student considering a gap year, or maybe you're a parent exploring the possibilities for your family, you're in the right place. So we are going to get to hear from some students who have experienced these programs firsthand, and it's so helpful. It should be really helpful in your decision-making processes. So feel free to drop questions in the chat. We will pop to them sort of as we go. But to kick us off, I'll actually just give you a short interview, or overview is the right word, of myself. I am an EF Gap Year alum myself. I'm from the great state of North Carolina. I decided that I wanted to take a gap year my senior year of high school after my parents brought me the idea. I was always sort of dead set on college as the next step, but they could tell that that wasn't going to be, the next best move for me at that point in my life. I was super excited by this idea. I ended up going on the full EF Gap Year program, traveling all around the world, getting to do some language study. I made a lot of really great friends. After my gap year, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I ended up sort of majoring in my gap year, is what I tell people. You might have heard me say that if I've spoken to you on the phone. I studied global studies with minors in art history and Italian, which were all themes that I had encountered during my year. And following college, I actually went and worked on 2 of our semester-long programs called the Pathfinder and the Voyager as a student life coordinator. So I directly supported 2 groups of 25 students for a duration of 20 weeks total, which was super exciting and a good bookend to my gap year, college gap year experience. Now my role is to walk students and families through the enrollment process and to help sort of explain what even a gap year is and how it could fit in anywhere in your academic journey. So that is a little bit about me. We are joined by 2 amazing alums tonight, Hannah and Alexis. You'll see that they're off camera right now, but you're going to get to have a lot of good FaceTime with them. They joined us on GAP programs and are now both in college. This panel is going to be Q&A style, all about the gap year experience, from the pre-departure to the return. And as we are sort of nearing the end of senior year for a lot of you, I assume, it's a time to sort of hear them and finalize next steps. And before we dive into the conversation, I want to just give a quick run through and some context on who we are at EF and why we've built these programs. Simply put, EF is the world leader in educational travel. For 60 years now, we've helped millions of people see new places, experience new cultures, learn new languages, and discover things about the world and themselves. EF Educational Tours is the largest provider of its kind, sending hundreds of thousands of students abroad every single year. Perhaps you or someone you know might have spent time studying at an EF school in one of 50 destinations. We've helped teach more than a dozen different languages to millions of students over the past 60 years. Or if you happen to take an 8th grade trip to DC, it's highly likely that you traveled with EF. Each June, EF brings thousands of young students to the capital. Here we go. I like this map a lot because you can see how there are many ways that you or your friends might have encountered EF, as we are a sprawling global organization made up of 17 different divisions. And you can zoom in here on the right where you'll see EF Gap Year and EF Study Abroad. As you all know, either because you are the parent of a student at this stage or you yourself are the student at this stage, this moment can represent a real inflection point. At 18 years old, most students in America have been on what feels like an educational conveyor belt for the past 10 or 15 years that has never really slowed down. And at this inflection point, they're sort of staring down this next phase, maybe college or university, or maybe you're after your first year of college, or maybe your second or third year of college, and you have a lot of pressure on you to make the next few years count. And it feels like the final stretch. The stakes are really high, and understandably, many of our students that we see on programs are in need of a pause to reflect on where they've been, where they are, and where they want to go from here. Now, on the other side of this equation, we have a world that students are stepping into, which is full of turbulence and rapid change, but also enormous opportunity. This traditional educational conveyor belt, if you will, tends to keep students sort of focused on that next step all the time, leaving little room to look around. But stepping outside of that structure and immersing yourself in a world beyond your own can really broaden your perspective, strengthen your soft skills, and prepare you to navigate whatever comes next with confidence and adaptability. And so this is where programs like ours here at EF Gap Year really live, at this intersection between our highly self-aware and growth-minded students and the world of challenges and opportunities that they face. It is why and how we create these programs that we create, which help students build confidence, find their path, and prepare to thrive in this ever-changing world. And you're going to hear exactly some cases in which this did exactly what we're saying tonight, which is super exciting. With this context in mind, quickly, let's just talk through what sort of programs we have, and then we'll just hop into our discussion. So to start with the different programs, we have the EF Gap Year to start. This is, and just a note, for more detailed information as it sort of pertains to specific programs or their components, your Gap Year consultant will be reaching out to you to provide their calendar and schedule a one-on-one consultation. This is where you'll dive into the week by week, what it looks like, logistics, and how to make it all happen. Both, just to zoom back into these programs, both the GAP and Study Abroad programs are great options for students seeking a break in their college experience, or more commonly, a launchpad into college. No matter the path, students return mature, more confident, and with a clearer sense of direction and purpose. These are all incredible, and knowing that everyone's needs are unique, our team is here to work with you, as we do for thousands of students, especially in this season, and help you figure out which one is the best fit. So we don't have time tonight to dive into every single program. Again, your Gap Year consultant will be more than happy to walk through each specifically with you and even tailor the program suggestion to your situation. But for now, it might be helpful to learn a little bit more about our year program, since it really is sort of the foundation of all of our programs. The EF Gap Year program is broken into 2 semesters with a winter break in between. The first semester is all about guided exploration. You'll travel to 12 cities across 3 continents with a small cohort of about 25-ish students. Each week, you will be exploring new themes in the city by engaging with specific topics that foster global awareness as well as personal and social development. You will start in Europe, hopping from London to Paris to Florence to Zurich to Munich, and finally Prague. It's really quite a mouthful. And then you will fly across the world all together to spend some time in Australia, visiting Sydney, Cairns, and Melbourne. And then you will wrap up in Thailand, where you will visit Bangkok, Krabi, and Koh Lanta. And by the end of that first semester, as you can imagine, you will be fully deemed a world traveler and step into winter break transformed. Now that you've gotten a grasp on travel and the world and how to become a confident person out there in the world, your second semester is all about cultural immersion, and you will discover what it's like to live independently abroad while learning a language or interning. You can opt to live in various incredible cities around the world, from Barcelona to Seoul to Tokyo, and learn the language at one of EF's language schools. Or you could become a local in the global city of Stockholm, Sweden, and do an internship at a company to start building your resume and your future. You will return from the gap year with a greater understanding of global issues. You will have discovered new interests and gained the confidence to forge your own path forward. You will have made lots of friends that will last a lifetime, as you'll hear tonight. The year truly has it all. And just to keep in mind as we go that regardless of which EF Gap program you enroll on, this is what's included. And just to zoom in quickly on that last point there about the mentorship, you will have a whole team of amazing people around you to support you with. You will, of course, have the cohort of friends that you travel with. You will have the field directors, tour directors, and local guides. These are our experts and logistics point people who are really your go-to people for any questions you have on the road. You will also have your program advisor who's based here in the States. They're available from the moment that you're enrolled for support all the way through when you return. And they're a truly awesome team. And then you'll also have your site directors and student life coordinators. This again is the role that I did. It's a shoulder to lean on, someone to get to know you and, maintain group dynamics throughout the course of the semester or year. These people really make the program. And really quickly, before we bring in the alums, I wanted to mention that just by being here tonight, you will receive $500 off your fall 2025 program if you enroll by May 31st. So just wanted to note that, again, connect with your gap year consultant on that piece. Happy to dive in. But with that said, I would love to shift over to the Q&A portion of the session, as our amazing alum can really dig into their experience and how it's impacted them. So if you want to hop on camera, Hannah and Alexis, I would love that. Yay, great. And quickly, I'll just sort of turn it over to you. Hannah, maybe if we can start with you, throw you immediately the mic. You want to just give us a quick overview of you and who you are, where you're coming from, and the GAP program that you did, and also what you're up to now?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I went on the Pathfinder Spring 2023 program. It was the best experience of my life. I brag about it every day. In fact, I bragged about it yesterday in my creative writing class, had to plug, but truly the most magical experience of my life. I am from Colorado and I am now going to Colorado State University. I'm in my second year here, finishing it up just now, and I am studying English literature here, and it's super cool.
That's amazing. Okay, I'm so excited. I'm gonna get so nosy. I have so many questions for you. But Alexis, why don't we hear from you now? I'm curious to hear your story.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alexis. I am from Southern California originally. I took a gap year between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, which I am finishing up right now at Stanford. So I'm still in California in the North Bay Area, which is nice. We're having good weather. I did the EF European Exploration Program, as it says on the screen, last spring in 2024. It was a shorter program that's kind of no longer active right now, but I'm really excited to speak to kind of those general gap year experiences and the more like transcendent aspects that kind of are consistent across all EF programs. So I'm really excited to hopefully provide some insights for everyone today.
Totally. And your experience as a student who has chosen to take a gap year will be so relevant as well. So I'm so excited to speak with you both. I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen. If you could bear with me through this tech piece. Let's hope I don't mess it up. Great. Okay. We did it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw you guys some questions. And maybe to start, Hannah, I'll pass it to you, give Alexis a pause. What made you decide to take a gap year and to go on some sort of gap program?
Yeah, Helen, like you, I was like super into school, college, whatever. That was like my jam. That's what I wanted to always do. And my mom kind of told me, "Hey, I kind of think you need to hit the brakes a little bit." I was stressing myself out too much. So I ended up committing to a school, an international school abroad, for the fall part of my gap year. But I really wanted to do something in the spring. But I was really nervous about doing the whole thing. I wasn't really sure. My mom told me I should do it. I wasn't sure. I decided to go to the school. I didn't know. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the spring. Maybe I can work. But so I was looking up gap year stuff online and being like, maybe, I don't know. And then EF came up and I had taken an EF tour when I was in middle school for the DC trip, like you mentioned. So I was like, wait, I know this place. So I clicked on it and I talked to my consultant, who is literally the most amazing woman ever. And I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I want to do. I get to travel. I get to go everywhere. But yeah, it was a really hard decision for me to make as someone was so dedicated to school, who loved school, who thought school was going to be my whole life. And I'm so glad I did it because it was such an eye-opening experience. And I learned so many new cool things about myself while I was on my gap. But yeah, that is what brought me to the gap year. And that is what brought me to EF specifically.
if my mic will go on. That's so awesome, Hannah. Yeah, we have a lot of similarity in that. And I think that just choosing to take a gap is it is an out of the box situation. So exciting that you came to that. Alexis, what about you? What brought you to the idea of a gap?
I feel like I'm repeating what's already been said, but for me also, my parents were a huge factor in that decision, which I feel like I hadn't met people who shared that experience until right now. So I just want to normalize like there's a lot of different reasons to take a gap year, but for me, I was also in a situation where like academics were kind of my entire life. I set my eyes on like very prestigious schools to go to, and then basically just did every activity I could, every AP class, every like honors class. And so by the time like my senior spring came around, my mental health was not in a good place. My like social experience was kind of suffering, and just like the real world development personally that I wanted also like wasn't making time for that in high school. And so similarly to what our other panelists said, I didn't really see that at the time, and I was just like, it's fine, I don't know anyone who's taken a gap year, I'm just going to go to college because that's what you do. And my college counselor was like, yeah, like, I wouldn't take time off. If you wanted to like travel, I would just study abroad in college or something. And I was just like, I don't know, it's still not feeling right. And so my parents were the ones to be like, oh, look, Stanford has a deferment policy. We would recommend that you kind of take a look at that and do some reflecting. And, my dad he's a business guy. He's very like reasonable, rational. We did a lot of like pro and cons lists. We did a lot of trade-off like analysis. We did a lot of like debating just between me and my parents. And I think I just came to the realization like, what did I have to lose on a gap year essentially? Like it just bought me time to be extra prepared for college. And like college is, I can tell you, like being a freshman, it's tough. Like it's definitely a big transition. And so I'm like really grateful I gave myself more time just to feel ready. And so what that looked like for me was trying to hit different points of development. Like I wanted to do work, I wanted to, travel, I wanted to spend time with family. And so I think like I talked to a lot of people who did gap years, and I heard like crazy stories about people like, a whole spectrum of what people decide to do on their gap year. And, some people travel for a year, and I think that's really awesome. I was looking for like, more of a mix of things. So I did stay local for part of the year, and I had like a couple internships, and I was just doing some local things. And then I spent, the fall and winter visiting family members in different states. So kind of like working up to that independence, just living away from home. And then I knew in the spring, I wanted to like push myself out of my comfort zone and do something big. And I knew I wanted to do some sort of international travel. Similarly, looked up the different options, and EF really had everything I was looking for. I think the support system in that, like being able to have a tour guide, being able to have a program director, being able to have like itinerary, like those details figured out was huge. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but they do a great job of balancing like freedom and independence with that safety and support as well. So it just ended up being a perfect experience for me.
Wow, I'm so happy to hear that. And yeah, I think we all sort of came at it from this same angle of, wanting to supplement our academics in that way to get out of that conveyor belt I was rambling on and on about before. Just to mention and sort of to bring attention to all of the different types of students that do these activities or these sorts of experiences. My brother just got back from one of our semester programs, the Changemaker in Central and South America, and he is sort of the opposite side of this spectrum from myself. He wasn't such a school focused person. He wanted to go straight to work, but we needed him to have this more social experience, right? To have a cohort of students where you have this new social bubble of peers to travel with and connect with. And he took a lot away from that experience too, as someone who didn't, go into this sort of narrow with eyes on college and all of that. So just like to bring that up. But Hannah, so Alexis, thank you for touching on sort of the deferral process as well. And you deferred from Stanford. Hannah, what did your sort of college process look like? Did you defer? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So this was part of the reason why I loved my gap year so much. I the college process was probably one of the most like stressful processes of my life. I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to that. I didn't know where I want to go. I feel like me and my friends were spiraling, trying to figure out like, what is the future going to look like? And so I decided to commit to a school in North Carolina, a private school in North Carolina, because I thought that's what I wanted. And it was a really nice school. I was so excited. I got into one of their really cool niche programs. And while I was away, I got to know how much I loved my home. As much as I loved being away, I loved being at home too. I missed Colorado. So I got to like think about the different other experiences I could have that wasn't this like school that like I'd been dreaming of, and maybe thinking of another dream that I wanted. So I did defer from that school in North Carolina, but while I was in my gap year, I reached back out to Colorado State University and was like, hey, can I have my acceptance back? And they said yes. And I got into a really cool scholarship program here at Colorado State. And they are some of the coolest people I've ever met in my cohort. And I've met some really amazing people here. I've had so many cool opportunities. And I loved going abroad so much that they have a wonderful exchange program here at the university with the University of Reading in England. And so I'm going abroad again next year for a whole year studying what I love to study at such a cool university. And I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity had I gone to that private school in North Carolina. So I felt like everything kind of fell into place because I was able to do this.
Wow, that is very serendipitous. I also sort of had a similar experience. I wanted to go to school in New York City. That was my biggest dream in the world. And then my parents sort of said, no, you want to do something exciting. And we think you should go to school in North Carolina. So I did the gap year, which was extremely exciting, and then was so excited to come back home. I think that it gave me an appreciation for home. Sounds like we all share that. But great. I'm curious, what were your biggest like goals going into a gap program? And maybe, Alexis, maybe we could throw it your way first. What were you looking to get out of it?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think sometimes like trying to plan out a gap year or like a gap travel experience like can be really intimidating. Like, what do I spend an entire like empty year doing? So I think like the goal setting initially was really important to me. Like I mentioned earlier, I wanted like a really multifaceted kind of goal system across like personal health, across like family, social relationships, across like work experience, like real world like development. And so I think all of those were present when approaching the travel experience. But I think specifically I was looking for the like independence skills, and I was looking for like the social relationship building skills as well, like kind of the soft skills that you were mentioning. I think those were the two things I really wanted to hit on that I think like travel really uniquely sets people up well for. And I can say from like, after the experience, like the little moments of, like chaos, but also like, excitement and just like moments of, transitioning and new hotels, new cities, like meeting the people in your cohort, like it definitely fulfilled like all of those things that I was looking for. And it wasn't something where I was like waking up every day like, okay, I need to do this to feel like I'm growing. It was just being in that process, like just being present for whatever like the EF experience was providing that day, that I realized by the end, oh my gosh, I've grown so much from like, day one to whatever the endpoint you have is. I think like you will definitely see a change in the trajectory across the experience. Like, just to share one quick like anecdote, I had never like done like a layover before in flying by myself, but my flight home was like a 5 a.m. departure from Rome, and then it had a stop in the Parisian airport like for like an hour, and then it flew like 11 hours back to LA. And so like I was completely intimidated by just looking at my itinerary to go home. But like, I did it. Like we got dropped off at the Rome airport. I like made my flight. We got through customs. We went to Paris and then like made it through just the craziest winding back alleys of like customs to finally our gate to LA. And when I saw the sign that said like LAX, I was like, oh my God, like I did it. Like I somehow managed to do this. And I don't think like I could have done that day one, but just by being in the program, like at the end, I was like, oh, I have the skills I need to navigate these really complicated situations. And it was really like meaningful to me to be able to see that growth.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing an anecdote too. I think as many of those as possible, because those examples, I mean, that's huge. Now I'm sure you feel just able to take on, any sort of travel. I think is probably an understatement. I mean, I definitely feel like I could take my family on a trip by myself. Hannah, what about you? What were you looking to get out of a gap program?
Going into it, I really had an open mind to what it was going to be and what I wanted it to be. I think mostly I wanted to get away from this like mindset I had of like, this is how things are, like this is like very structured mindset that I had of like, this has to happen, then this has to happen, then this has to happen. And I wanted to get away from that. And I definitely did. But I think the skills I gained from my gap year overall was bravery and being brave and putting myself out there in a way that I had never attempted to do before, but was kind of forced to do on my gap year in many different ways. Um, I I like learned how to use public transportation in countries that I did not know how to use or know their language. And me and my friends would go up to people and be like, how do we get to this? And I'm so sorry. And like, and like being brave and having those conversations and meeting all these new people and like figuring things out. But like I always think back to like that public transportation piece because like it really like I think shapes kind of how that went for me of being like nervous and getting on and like getting off at the wrong stop, which was fun too, getting off at the wrong stop because sometimes you saw things you didn't expect to see. So I did enjoy that part, but also just figuring it out and like being brave and like putting yourself out there and being like, I'm gonna figure this out. And then you do, and you're like, wow, this was so great. And I got to see all these cool things because I was brave enough to do it and to try it. And so now in my everyday life, I am way more brave than I was before and being like, I am going to try this weird thing that someone's asking me about and doing and like why not and because it always ends up being something that's really interesting and cool that I got to be a part of because I was brave and because I had that bravery. So that was, I think, the biggest thing I got out of it that maybe I didn't quite expect at the beginning, but it definitely disrupted this like structure thing that I had before.
I love that. And what I heard too, another piece that you talked about is advocating for yourself. And that was a huge piece that I took away from it. And I felt like when I got to college, and my friends who went, straight to work and all of the different places that people go after a program like this, we were all just able to put questions out there and ask people for help, which is, I think, a skill that a lot of people lack. So very cool. Thank you both for sharing. To sort of focus in on like this first moment on the program. And when you arrive into this new group where no one really knows each other, how are you feeling like in the first day? Did it take some time to get in the groove of everything? Sorry, let's see. I'll point it to Alexis.
Yes, that's a really good question. I think I just kind of like jumped to the end of the trip, but yes, to go back to the first day that I got there, another like long flight from LA to London is where I started my journey. And we had a lot of East Coast people who had like, 5, 6 hour flights. And I was like on my red eye, trekking it across like the world, it felt like. And like all that time I was just stewing on the plane, like, oh my god, like this is crazy. I'm by myself. I don't know a single person like that I'm about to go meet. I've never been to any of these places that we're going to go see. And so, I think there is something really magical though, like when you touch down and you're kind of like, okay, we're here. Like we're going to embrace this experience. We're just gonna like figure things out, keep moving forward. That really like you are forced to like get out of your head at a certain point and just put one foot in front of the other and like I was able to like go through customs, like meet up with the group, like there we had our like WhatsApp group chat, and like tour guide was sending out like, okay, we're meeting at this cafe, And we're like, it was kind of funny, but most of us got lost in the London airport, like trying to get to this meeting spot. But a lot of us ended up finding each other in the airport, like organically, that we were all like on EF trips and like helped each other get there, which I think is really emblematic of like the instant kind of like community and solidarity that we started feeling. And I think like that seems like kind of idealized, but like there is a lot of like initial adrenaline that first day, and people are so like, hi, what's your name? Where are you from? Oh my God, like great to meet you. And it is overwhelming, but I will say it's really, really accurate for like new student orientation in college. That's all you'll be doing is like meeting 1,000 people at once and like having to like, feel comfortable introducing yourself, kind of like asking questions about other people, holding a conversation with someone you just met. Like those are, and also like applies to like going into a new job, any new space, like having that social like openness, I think was something that like we all like initially experienced and that really shaped the first day. I would say like it does get easier beyond the first day, like things start to settle down and like you'll start like having deeper conversations with people and like figuring out what you each enjoy in the free time part. Like, oh, I really love museums. Like, does anyone want to like start planning, to go see this museum the next day? Like things like that will start clicking. And it was again like super organic. Please don't stress too much about like the social dynamic. That was like my biggest concern of just like, oh, what if no one wants to hang out with me? What if like I'm alone? And some days like I was alone getting lunch and it was fine. And some days I felt like really connected and I had like a core group and we were doing stuff in the cities. So it's all valid, the nervousness, the fear, the anxiety, but I promise once you're there, like you lock in, you find people and you guys are in it together. So it ended up being positive.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a sentiment I hear from every student I work with, and myself included, is just the nerves going into it. And I always tell people, and you all can like nod if you agree, but after like 3 days, because everyone's new, going through so many new experiences at the same time in a new place, it's so easy to form those bonds much quicker than you would if you were like in a science class or even first day on the job or whatnot. But that being said, Hannah, curious to hear from you what your first moments on program felt like.
Oh my God. I was very, very nervous. And like mirroring what Alexis said, like it was so funny going to college afterwards. I'm like, this is exactly what just happened. Where it was like, everyone is nervous about making friends. Like it's not just you. Like me, I met some of my closest friends on this trip. I talk to them all the time. And toward the end of our trip, like we talked about the first couple of days and being like, I thought you didn't like me. I thought you didn't like me. And like, being like, I don't know. Like, it was just so weird. And like, I thought this and I thought this. And it's so chaotic. And everyone is trying to make best friends. Like, everyone's just like, this is such a long time. Like, we have to make friends. Like, and it's so stressful. And I think everyone stresses themselves out. But it's so important to remember that everyone feels the same way you do, of like, I need friends. Like, I need to make friends. Like, I can't be alone. And here's the thing, you will not be alone. Like, that is for sure. These people are going to know you more than anyone else in your life is going to know you. Like, my trip was, I think 10 weeks, maybe a little longer. I don't remember, but it was around 10 weeks. At the end of the 10 weeks, like my best friends knew everything about me. They knew me at my worst. They knew me at my best. Like they knew me inside and out. Like we would joke about our one friend. She like had this like angry face that she would make when she was hungry, and was a very specific face. And we're like, we need to go feed her right now. Otherwise she's going to start yelling at us in 10 minutes. But those it takes a while to like build those relationships and stuff. But those first few days are just so nerve wracking. It's but not just on the friendship front, but also on the like, I'm going to these places and I've never been to them before. And am I going to be okay? And like, you are going to be okay. And there's so many resources there for you. Like I became so close with my SLC, Anisha. I still follow her on Instagram. I love Anisha. She's like the best person in the whole world. And like say Lou was my tour guide and they became best friends and we all became this big group. But these strangers that you meet on the first day are like going to be your family by the end, and you're going to sob on the way home because you're like, I miss my family.
Exactly. Wow. I love Anisha, first of all. That's great. She's awesome. All of the student life coordinators that we have, I mean, this kind of feels like tooting my own horn a little bit because I was one, but they're very caring. They just want to be, there for the students, and they get to know, each student one-on-one, and can really, like you said, Hannah, pick up on body language. I think that that's a huge piece everyone can sort of get on board with and read about each other after an experience like this. So the support network is definitely there. But thank you. And that sort of answered my next question too, which was about the relationships that you built on the program. Alexis, anything to add there about sort of what it felt like with a community on this program?
Yes, I realized, like, as we were shifting, I was like, oh, I have like a few more things to say on the social front. So I'm glad you asked. I would say, like, um again, like, to reiterate this point of like support systems and resources from EF, I did the student of color like pre-departure like affinity group, and that was like really, really helpful in my experience. So I just want to plug like any sort of affinity groups that EF offers. Like initially I was like, oh, I don't know, like again, like the putting yourself out there, but I ended up meeting a girl who ended up going on my exact program, and we ended up like being able to text each other like in the weeks leading up to the trip, and then like we were rooming together during the trip. So I had like we had never met, so I still felt a little like, oh, I don't know, but we had like I had someone who I was like still like a little bit connected to, and that was super important. But again, like that's totally like not even necessary if you don't know, like most people don't know anybody. And EF did like an icebreaker activity on like the second day, and again, like you might cringe like, oh, I don't want to do icebreakers, but they were fun and they were actually really, really helpful, because as soon as we left from that activity, like I noticed people talking to each other and like feeling again like that sense of bravery like you mentioned, and just like approaching and asking questions. And then I want to say, like, I had mentioned earlier, like, oh, I found like kind of my group. Like it was true. I had like a group of like three really close like friends that I did a lot of things with. But I would also say my biggest advice is like not to hold on too tightly to any like one person or one group, because I think there was a lot of really fun moments when like the groups shifted and I was able to do things like with people I wasn't maybe as close with, but like we were in Paris and I'm from SoCal, so like grew up going to Disneyland, and we were in Paris, and I know there's Disneyland Paris, and I was like, oh, like no one in my immediate friend group kind of cares about that or wants to do that. But I overheard two other girls in our program. They were like, oh my god, we just bought our tickets to Disneyland. I'm so excited. And I was like, hey guys, would you mind if I tagged along on your like trip to Disney? And they were like, yes, of course, girl, like come join us. And they were so like welcoming, even though I wasn't like necessarily the closest with them, but just like I felt comfortable enough to ask to join. They were so nice. It ended up being a really fun day that we did on the free day. And like by the end of the trip, we had a group of 8 girls like going through Rome and things. So like there's definitely some fluidity in the social dynamics. And so I think just like being willing to embrace like, yes, I have like my roommate I'm close with, or like this group, but also I know these people and I know them, and I can like jump from group to group, because that's another kind of like life skill I think in college too. Like you're gonna have different groups of people for different interests, and that was something that like I experienced firsthand on the EF trip, and that I think was encouraged also like by the student life coordinator, by the tour guide, and that was something really like beneficial.
That's awesome. That sounds like a defining moment, which kind of shifts me into our next question about what you're like, if you could think of any defining moments on your program, moments where you had sort of a, wow, I'm doing this thing. And I know we talked about the airport and seeing the sign to LAX and all of that. What else comes up? Hannah, maybe I'll shift it to you if you have anything that comes to mind.
I like 3 come to mind for me. My group went to Iceland first. We went to Iceland. I don't think the EF does Iceland anymore, but it was our first destination. And it wasn't necessarily Iceland itself. It was the fact that this was the first place we went to as a group. And we all went on the plane together, and like this was our first hotel that we all shared together. And it just felt so defining because we were on this like bus and we were all just like, wow, we're really doing this. And I feel like that's when our friendships started to get solidified, was in Iceland, which is a beautiful place too. For me personally, It was London. I'm an English major. I love books. Harry Potter like changed my life. And so when I was in London, I snagged a ticket to the studio tour that they had there. And I like navigated public transportation in London, which was really, but it was really easy. It was the fact that the studio tour was in a completely different city. And so I had to figure out how to get from like where we were staying near the Tower of London to where it was. And like, I did it all by myself and I figured it out and I went and I got to have this incredible experience that was so full circle for me because of what Harry Potter had meant to me and my journey. And like I was sitting on like the bus afterward and just like crying to myself, being like, wow, this is like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm an adult, I'm a person, like, I'm able to have these experiences. And it was just so full circle for me. And then we ended our program in Italy. And it was our final night in Italy. And we had put me and my best girlfriends, we had all put our beds together and we were all just sitting on our bed and like crying. And I was just like, I got to have all these magical, amazing experiences. And I got to have it with the coolest people I have ever met in my life. And I think about them all the time. I think about that night all the time. I'm literally tearing up thinking about it because it's just like I feel so lucky that I got to do all of this and that I got to meet the most incredible people and have these experiences that I'm going to keep for the rest of my life. So I would say those three were my biggest ones.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I had plenty of those moments too. Just the surreal type of experience where it all comes into picture. And kind of when I look back on it, it feels like a dream, right? Because it was such a different type of experience than I had ever had before and that I didn't have in college. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Alexis, anything that you wanted to add in terms of like a moment that you felt all that come together?
Yes, I also have a few that come to mind. I would describe my experience like as like the highest of the highs and then kind of like, whoa, the craziest of the like not low, I won't say low, but I will say like learning experiences are just like, whoa, that was crazy. I think like and then sometimes a day has both of those things. Like I've London was also really impactful for me. There was like our first kind of free day, me and my friends, like we were gonna hang out with like these guys on the trip and like go like tour the city in our free time. And then there ended up being some like not drama, but like the guys were like, actually, we don't want to like go with you girls anymore and we're gonna do our own thing. And I think like that happened like kind of early in the trip where we were like, oh no, like is there drama? Like are we like what's going on here? But then immediately we were like, okay, like it's fine. We're in London. We're gonna go do what we want. And like we had like an amazing dinner together, like just the girls. And then we just like we're like, okay, we're gonna go see the landmarks of the city at night. We're gonna go see Big Ben. We're gonna go see like Tower Bridge. We're gonna go see all these crazy places, and we're gonna use the public transportation and we're going to figure it out. And I remember like, you know, we were still scared at this point. We were like really nervous, but we got onto the metro and we like did all of the, you know, stops that we needed to, and we ended up like going into this station, no idea where we were. We found the nearest exit, like ascended onto the street, and like towering above us was Big Ben illuminated at night, and we were just like standing in awe that like we were in such like an iconic place. We had found it by ourselves and like it was a shared moment like with the four of us that like we immediately knew like we were going to hold on to that forever. And we ended up like all FaceTiming home, and like we were each on the phone with our parents like showing them Big Ben like that we had like found it. And like it was just like I don't know, a really like kind of like maybe seemingly small but for us like kind of significant moment that we were able to kind of like really bond around right away. Um, I will say like, okay, later in the trip, we also ended in Italy, and we were again like taking public transportation, and I had like my fanny pack on me in the metro, and this was at night. And I did end up getting some items stolen from me. I was like pickpocketed on the metro, and I was like, you know, I say this for two reasons. One, just like, guys, be careful, like, on the trip, like, it was totally preventable, and, like, I was fine, like, I had my passport, like, thankfully in another pocket, but, like, keep your bags under a jacket, like, be mindful about where you are in space. But then I also say that because, like, I was obviously devastated, like, didn't know what to do. I had lost, like, my phone, I had lost my wallet, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, what?" But I had my friends with me, and they immediately, like, came to my side, like, got me off the metro. We called the tour guide, like, she told us what to do, like, she met us back at the hotel and was like, "Okay, here's what's gonna happen, like, are you okay? Here's what we can do," and, like, luckily I had, like, a backup phone with me. Also would highly recommend, like, having, plan Bs, and I was able to, like, she helped me connect back to the cellular to get back onto the group chat. Like, it was all very, very solvable things. It all ended up being totally fine. But, like, again, like, just to show that, like, yes, there are, like, super, super high moments. There might be moments that are frustrating or, like, disappointing or, like, "Oh my god, like, what's going on?" But the friends that you'll make along the way, like, will help you through anything. And, like, I knew that I was gonna be okay because they helped me call my parents at home, they helped me call the tour guide, and, like, EF was so, 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 so supportive about that, and it was, like, totally something in my control that now I'm, like, super aware of anytime I travel. So, like, there's lessons to be learned in so many different aspects of travel that you won't learn just, like, going, I don't know, not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone like that. And I think about, like, both the, like, magical moments and the moments that were, like, initially kind of but ended up being super, super helpful, like, in the long term. So both are gonna be valid and there, and it's okay, and EF is great across the spectrum. So, yep.
Yeah, I had plenty of moments of challenge as well. And I think navigating those challenges away from my family for the first time was sort of an eye-opening moment and gave me a lot of confidence to be able to go on then in college and not have to call home every time, I lost a sock in the laundry or something like that. So thank you for sharing all that. If you can't tell, my office's lights have turned off, so I've got a ring light, so we're fine. But I wanted to quickly pop to a couple of these questions in the chat before we sort of talk about post-gap impacts. In terms of a ratio for gender breakdown on these programs, typically we see sort of a 40% male, 60% female breakdown, and that's sort of standard as you would see in any freshman class of college. It can differ program to program. My brother's program he was on recently was actually like 60% male, 40% female. So looks different on what you're looking for. I see a question on college credits. I would connect with your gap year consultant to figure out, it's sort of a complex answer if I'm being transparent, because each program offers a little bit of a different amount, but anywhere between 6 credits and a full semester's worth of credit is what you could earn. From Colorado State University, actually. So that's funny because we have a student right here. I think there's a couple other questions about student size groups. Yeah, it was about 25 students in each group. Depending on program, that can vary. Yeah, diversity for sure. We actually have a couple really great panels. If you want to look on our YouTube, you can hear from students who speak to that perspective. We have students who come from all different backgrounds who go on these types of programs. It's not all students from one particular state, mostly going to be US and Canada students. But I would point you in the direction of those YouTube videos to hear from some students who have come from different backgrounds than myself. Sophomore in college, junior, how many are from high school versus in college? Yeah. I don't know if either of you want to maybe speak to that. Were there students who were, not right out of high school on your program? And personally, on my program, there were plenty of students who were sort of after like a first year, after even the third, or had just graduated. Anyone have like friends who were at a different point in the college experience?
Yeah, I think I'm like 3 or 4 come from the top of my head of who I know for a fact were in college. One girl had just graduated college, a few were still in college. And honestly, like they were I mean, like I would say a majority of us were between high school and college, but some of my close friends were in college and they were a little bit older than me, but that didn't really affect dynamics at all. I would say like we were all really great friends with each other. But yeah, there was a really good mix of both. Yeah.
Great. Cool. Okay, then I will shift us to the final sort of segment for these last few minutes here. We've sort of touched on this already, and I've heard some themes of what you both took away from this experience, but how has it impacted you, what you're up to now, and sort of how you maneuver through life? Maybe Alexis, I might throw it over to you.
Yeah, I think definitely some of the initial things I mentioned are true, like just social confidence was a huge, huge thing that I gained. I would just say, uh, okay, I would say, like, being like I can only speak from, like, the college freshman experience, but of course these apply in many different areas, but, like, the kind of, like, fast-paced, personal responsibility element of, like, a program like that has, like, been something that really stayed with me, like, "Oh, we need to, like, get up at this time so that we make the ferry to the next country," or, like, we're like, "What can we do about that?" Or, like, "You need to know the itinerary for the next day, you need to have your clothes packed by that day, you need to, like, know the meeting spots, get to the meeting spots, manage your time." Like, those are just, like, the realities of travel, but it does, like, hit differently when you're on your own and you're doing these things for the first time, and I think, like, again, it's not something you have to, like, intentionally think about too hard, it's just, like, the nature of the program puts you into those situations where you start developing those time management skills, you start developing, like, an awareness of, like I talked about, like, "Oh, I'm in a big city. Let me figure out how to be safe. Let me figure out how to, like, get to places on time, stay with my friends, make decisions about my free time. Like, oh, I have an entire day of nothing. We're in this incredible city. Let's work together to like come up with an itinerary ourselves. Like, of course, like tour guide, she was so awesome, provided recommendations for us. But then we had friends who were like, I've always wanted to do this thing. Okay, let's go like figure out how to get tickets for that. Like, let's like really take initiative on these things. And I think in college, like those are all really, really applicable skills. Like, oh, I have a 9:30 a.m. class. Like, let me figure out where that is. Let me figure out how to get there on time. Like, I have this deadline. I have this job opportunity. Like, oh, I have a free weekend. What's happening around me in the city? Like, can I go do things? And I think, like, just where I was raised, like, I was definitely more like, I don't know, like, sheltered. I was just focused on school, but didn't really have to make these big decisions. But coming back from EF, I felt super, super, well, like, I guess I can't say like 100% confident, but like so much more confident and like feeling like a sense of personal capability that I trust myself to be able to do these hard things and that I can like kind of operate as an adult in the world. I think that's been like, some of those like intangible things that I really like continue to draw on. Or when I like come up with a difficult obstacle, it's like, oh, I've done way harder things than this. I did a trip by myself. Like just knowing I kind of have that in my back pocket gives me a lot of like faith in myself when I'm like continuing to grow up. So yeah.
Oh, I love to hear it. That is the goal, and that's exactly how I feel too. So you couldn't have summed it up better. Hannah, let's hear from you.
I touched on the social confidence thing, and a lot of what Alexis said, I definitely relate to. I would say one of the biggest things too for me is like problem solving skills, like of what you kind of touched on, but it was very much like being able to put myself in a situation I've never been in before and being like, how do I navigate this? What do I do? Like quick thinking, like um as well as like building relationships with people. Like I made a lot of best friends, but I mean, so there was a people in my group that were a lot different from me, and like navigating those relationships too and being together. um I use these skills on a day-to-day basis. I am a resident assistant in my school, so I use my problem solving skills all the time in this job. Um, I also use my speaking skills that I definitely gained on my gap year on my other job that I have on campus. I'm a tour guide. And so, like, talking to people and being able to have these conversations definitely came a lot easier after my gap year. And then just in my day to day, like I mentioned my creative writing class yesterday, like my life experiences have been so informed by this trip and stuff, and like talking about it. And again, that like bravery thing comes into play as well that I talked about earlier. But yeah, it informs my decisions all the time and what I love to do. So yeah, but I would say problem solving skills has been one of the lifesavers, and a lot of jobs that I've applied to and people that I've talked to have been very interested in that and being like, that's such a cool thing that you did to get to this point. So yeah, resumes, they love it. Job interviews love it. So
That is a great point. I was going to say, I have never had an interview where I haven't been asked by the interviewer what this means. And it hasn't been an answer to a question of what challenges have you, faced? How have you managed sort of changes in plan and all that? So very great point, Hannah. I think we should probably just wrap it up. If you all want to each give like your one maybe piece of advice to someone thinking about a gap year, that might be a good thing to sort of send us off into our night. Who would like to take us away? I know it's like maybe
I guess I can try since like it might be back to me just in the rhythm.
Perfect.
Oh, it's so hard. Everyone's experience is so different. People are like looking for different things. I think just like staying true to yourself and like kind of understanding where your starting point is and like just being honest, like, okay, I want to work on these things. I have like, whatever goal in mind. I want to work, I want to go to school, I want to do this, that, like whatever you're kind of thinking about for your future and like how you want to grow to get there. It's so helpful to like reflect on that at the beginning and then kind of just pursue different things that feel right for you and like aligned with your goals. Like I didn't do like crazy things during my gap year. Like you hear about, there might be some crazy stories you'll get from like gap year people and like those things are totally available and I would consider like my travel experience like crazy like for me and it was like exactly what I was looking for. So I think just being in tune with like yourself and not trying to be someone you're not trying to like, feel like you have to measure up to some sort of standard for the gap year, but just being like, I've chosen to take this time and it's like a huge luxury. Like I'm already in school and I'm like, another gap year would be lovely, like to have like that time again. But like you really do get to like make it your own in a lot of ways. And I think just thinking about travel, I would highly recommend inserting a travel experience into that. And I think EF worked really well for me. And it's some like I'm still like obviously connected to EF. Like they're so like responsive to the alumni community and like, just providing like a sense of support in whatever your next steps are. And so yeah, and also like I don't know, don't put too much pressure on things and just like whatever you end up doing, just try to make the most of it and really try to like explore your own passions and strengths that you can draw on in the future. And I think like you'll have a great experience.
I love it. Mic drop. Amazing. Thanks, Alexis. Hannah, you want to wrap us up with your one best piece of advice?
I saw the question, like, what if we have no idea what we want to do? And I think that is so cool that you don't know what you want to do. My piece of advice that I was thinking of was keep an open mind. Like out of high school, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. That's what I was talking about with my creative writing classes. Like I thought I knew exactly what I wanted. I thought my future was planned out, but I went on this gap year and I had no idea what I wanted to do afterward. And I feel so blessed now because now I feel like I have this world of opportunities that I get to explore. And it's because I had an open mind. Keep an open mind, embrace the highs and embrace the lows because there will be some no matter what you do, and you take it in stride, and as long as you have that open mind, it'll be just fine. So that is my piece of advice.
I want that on a t-shirt. That was incredible. You both are rock stars. So thank you so much for sharing. I feel so lucky. Every time I get to speak with other EF Gap alums, I'm so inspired and I want to take another gap year. Instead, I just get to talk about it every day, all day, which is kind of the best. My friends are like, please stop. But that's fine. I saw a question just about how this $500 works. Yeah. So after this session, probably in the next day, maybe two, your gap year consultant, which I promise you have, even if you don't know who they are, they will be sending you a text or giving you a call or something along those lines to hopefully set up a time to chat more, specifically about which program could even be a fit. Or, maybe you have really specific questions. They're an amazing resource. They're so full of knowledge. And they'll be able, again, I'm tooting my own horn because I am one, but they'll be able to take you through a million sort of questions. And if you enroll by the end of May, which they can sort of walk you through how to do, you'll receive $500 off the fall 2025 program tuition. Again, Hannah, Alexis, thank you so much for joining us. I will wrap us up. We went an hour and 2 minutes of just amazing content. So thank you both so much, and good luck with the rest of your freshman